Picture this. It's a Sunday afternoon. You are sitting in a living room surrounded by your friends. Suddenly, 80,000 people inside a stadium on the television erupt into deafening cheers. Grown adults are weeping. Strangers are hugging each other. People have painted their faces, spent half their paychecks on jerseys, and are screaming at the screen because a young man they have never met just threw a piece of leather across a white line. It is a socially celebrated spectacle. Everyone is captivated, completely dialed in. Everyone except you. You're sitting on the couch, eating a chip, feeling absolutely nothing. If this is you, you've probably wondered what's wrong with you. But neuroscience actually tells us within the first glance at brain scans of non-fans that this isn't just a quirky preference. It is a fundamental biological difference in how your brain processes reward, agency, and tribal identity. If you've ever faked a high five at a Super Bowl party, if you've ever nodded along blankly when someone asked if you caught the game last night, or if you've simply wondered why you seem to be entirely missing the sports gene that the rest of the world possesses, stick around. Because over the next few minutes, we are going to unpack the hidden psychological machinery behind your indifference. By the end of this video, you will understand exactly why your brain rejects the stadium hype, and why not caring about the big game might actually be your hidden psychological superpower. First of all, I need you to take a deep breath. You are okay. You are entirely normal. Society has a funny way of making the non-sports fan feel like an absolute alien. We call sports the universal language. We use sports metaphors for business, relationships, and life. So when you don't speak that language, people look at you as if you're unpatriotic, antisocial, or just plain boring. I want to validate right now that you aren't broken. Your emotional receptors are perfectly intact. You aren't lacking passion. You are just wired completely differently. And honestly, your perspective is a breath of fresh air. But to understand your brain, we first have to take a look at theirs. Why does the majority obsess over sports in the first place? I promise, they aren't crazy either. It all comes down to a well-documented psychological phenomenon called basking in reflected glory, or burging. When a fan watches their chosen team win, their brain actually releases a massive, intoxicating surge of dopamine and testosterone. The craziest part? The fan's brain processes the victory as if they played the game themselves. It is an evolutionary hack. Millions of years ago, survival meant belonging to a strong, victorious tribe. Today, we don't have to hunt mammoths to prove our tribe's strength. Instead, we subconsciously attach our identity to a sports franchise. When they win, our primitive brain says, "Our tribe is strong. We are safe. We matter." It's a powerful, deeply ingrained human instinct. So, why doesn't your brain do that? Why is your primitive tribe meter so quiet? It's not a lack of dopamine, it is a difference in your locus of control. In psychology, your locus of control is how much you believe you dictate your own life's outcomes. People who naturally reject sports obsession tend to have a highly developed internal locus of control. Simply put, your neurological reward system demands personal agency. Your brain does not trigger a massive reward response for an achievement you had absolutely zero physical part in. While the sports fan's brain can vividly adopt the victory of a stranger, your brain looks at the television and says, "I didn't throw that pass. I didn't score that goal. Why should I celebrate?" You don't want to bask in reflected glory. Your psychology demands that you earn your dopamine through your own direct actions. But here is the kicker. And this is where your indifference actually becomes a massive biological advantage. That tribal sports mechanism we talked about, It has a dark, incredibly dangerous side. It's called corfing, cutting off reflected failure. When a heavily invested fans team loses, it doesn't just result in a sigh of disappointment. Their brain registers it as a literal threat to their tribe's survival. Fans experience real, measurable spikes in the stress hormone cortisol. Heart rates elevate to dangerous levels. Sleep is disrupted. In fact, studies have repeatedly shown that incidents of cardiac arrest and, tragically, domestic violence rates spike in cities immediately following a major sports loss. It is a psychological hijacking. By naturally opting out of this cultural phenomenon, your brain is actually insulating itself. You are immune to vicarious trauma and synthetic stress. While millions of people are letting their mood, their week, and their cardiovascular health be dictated by the bounce of a ball, your emotional baseline remains stable. You are completely protected from a fabricated war. Now let's pause and be completely fair. Sports are not inherently bad. Not at all. At their best, sports are a beautiful, unifying force. They build incredible communities. They give fathers and sons a safe language to express emotion. They teach young kids the value of teamwork, resilience, and discipline. Think about the Olympics. For a brief moment, the entire world stops fighting and comes together to marvel at the peak of human physical potential. For many people, sports provide a necessary, healthy escape from the crushing weight of everyday adult life. And we have to respect that. But since you aren't spending your weekends screaming at a referee through a screen or analyzing a draft pick for 3 hours, where is all your passion going? This is where the psychology of substitution kicks in. You see, human beings all have a finite amount of emotional energy. Because you aren't expending yours on spectator sports, you are likely redirecting it into creation rather than consumption. Non-sports fans frequently pour their tribal energy into active personal pursuits. You might obsess over art, building a business, mastering a musical instrument, coding, or diving deep into philosophy. You still seek out community, but you don't build it based on geographic proximity to a stadium. You build your community based on shared ideas, shared values, and shared creativity. Let's also take a moment to address the elephant in the room. For some of you watching this, your disinterest in sports isn't just neurological, it's learned. And maybe it's a little painful. For a lot of people, sports were weaponized in childhood. Maybe you grew up with a hyper-competitive parent who made love feel conditional on your athletic performance. Maybe you carry the quiet trauma of being picked last in dodgeball, or you felt entirely alienated by the aggressive, exclusionary jock culture in your high school. If the language of sports was historically used to make you feel inadequate, small, or weak, your brain did exactly what it is designed to do. It shut off the receptor. It made you stop caring about the game to protect your peace. And if that's your story, I see you. And it makes perfect sense. Zooming out, this conversation is about so much more than basketball, soccer, or football. It's about how we choose to experience our brief time as human beings. Society constantly pushes us toward collective distraction. We are handed a jersey and told to watch the gladiators in the arena, so we don't have to look too closely at our own lives. But choosing to step away from the spectacle allows you to ask much bigger, much heavier questions. What are you actually building? Who are you cheering for in your own reality? By refusing to sit in the stands, you are subconsciously choosing to be the protagonist of your own story, rather than a spectator in someone else's. So, the next time you find yourself at a Super Bowl party or at a sports bar with your coworkers, and everyone around you is collectively losing their minds over a penalty call, Just smile. Enjoy the snacks. Have a drink. Know that your quiet indifference is not a flaw. It is a profound psychological strength. You aren't missing out on the game. You are just playing a completely different one. One where you hold the ball, you set the rules, and you alone determine the victory. If you have ever felt like an outsider because you just don't get the sports hype, I want to hear from you. Drop a comment below and tell me, since you aren't obsessing over a team, what do you obsess over instead? What is your passion? It is a completely safe space down there in the comments. If this video brought you some clarity and made you feel a little more understood today, please hit that like button. It helps the channel immensely. And don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into the hidden psychology of our everyday lives. Take care of yourselves. I'll see you in the next one.